All right, so for completing the square, we have to have a 1 in front of our x squared. That's mandatory. We have that, we can move forward with the process. I move the constant over, so it becomes a negative 24. Half of 8 is 4, and 4 squared is 16. That's the trick in this problem. If I add 16 to one side, I got to add 16 to the other. We factor here. We get x plus 4 squared equals negative 8. Square root of x plus 4 squared equals the square root of negative 8. X plus 4, when I simplify negative 8, 2 and 4, 2 and 2. Pair of 2's. Goes on the outside, 2 goes on the inside. So this is plus or minus 2i root 2. And then we finish the problem off by subtracting 4 on both sides. So this would be your answer. All right, so when there's a number in front of the x squared, we got to divide every term by that number, including the 0 over there. It's good form to put the 2 under the 0 as well. So now we're at x squared plus 6x minus 20 equals 0. And I'm doing the same process. I'm adding 20 to both sides. X squared plus 6x equals 20. We're dividing the 6 by 2. Half to 6 is 3. And 3 squared is 9. So 20 plus 9. We factor what's here. X plus 3 squared. And it's always going to be half the middle term. We take the square root of both sides. Now I can't simplify root 29, so it just becomes plus or minus root 29, and we subtract 3 on both sides. There's our answer. The second problem, similar to that, is on the next page. Now with the 3 in front, we have to divide everything by 3. So you're dividing whatever term's in front of that x squared. X squared plus 2x, X squared plus 2x plus 14 equals 0. I subtract that 14 to the other side. X squared plus 2x. Half of 2 is 1, and 1 squared is a positive 1. Negative 14 plus 1. When this factors, it's x plus 1 squared equals a negative 13. We take the square root of both sides. Now the square root of a negative is I. We got to take the I out. There's nothing we can do with that 13. So the answer ends up being x equals negative 1 plus or minus I root 13. In this particular problem, there's no number in, or I shouldn't say there's no number. The coefficient in front of x squared is 1, so we're good. What makes this a challenging problem after we move the 10 over is half of 5 is going to be 5 halves. When you square 5 halves, 5 halves squared is 5 over 2 times 5 over 2. That's 25 over 4. That's what we're adding to both sides of the problem. Now my advice is this. X squared, when we factor this, we get x plus 5 halves squared. It's always half the middle term in our parentheses squared or our binomial squared. When adding negative 10 plus 25 over 4, instead of writing negative 10, I'm going to write negative 40 over 4. I'm going to create a common denominator. Negative 40 over 4 plus 25 over 4 is negative 15 over 4. So this equals a negative 15 over 4. When you square both sides, this becomes x plus 5 halves. This becomes plus or minus I root 15 over 2. You take the square root of the numerator, you take the square root of the denominator. The square root of 4 is 2. That's why it leaves the radical. The square root of 15 we can't simplify. And then my final answer is going to be this. Negative 5 halves plus or minus I root 15 over 2. Question? I would write the quadratic formula down first. And yes, this should be something you walk into class knowing. A equals 1, B equals 6, and C equals 10. You do not need to get a 1 in front of the x squared. And now we're just plugging the numbers in. Negative 6 plus or minus 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 10 over 2 times 1. Negative 6 plus or minus 36 minus 40 over 2. Negative 6 plus or minus negative 4 over 2. And the square root of negative 4 is 2i. Square root of 4 is 2, but it's a negative, so it's 2i. I think it's good to split up the denominator. Negative 3 plus or minus I would be your answer. Second one. My A is 2, my B is 3, and my C is negative 15. So, negative 3 plus or minus 3 squared minus 4 times 2 times a negative 15 over 2 times 2. Negative 3 plus or minus 3 squared is 9. 4 times 2 times a negative 15. 8 times 15 is 120. Since it's a double negative, we're adding 120 to both sides, and it's all over 4. What's nice here for you is this. We take the square root of 129 and put it over 4. We should check. Can I break down 129? Piece 3 goes into it, but it goes in 43 times. So no number pairs up. Therefore, we leave that as our answer. Now, with quadratic formula, we do have to get it equal to 0. Try and keep that A term positive. My A here is 3, my B is negative 4, and my C is 20. So notice the double negative when you put the B in, and it's negative 4 squared. We're going to talk about that one specifically. Minus 4 times 3 times 20. All over 2 times 3. Negative 4 is a positive 4. Most people are okay with that. Negative 4 squared is positive 16. That's one of the common mistakes I saw. People writing negative 16. You're squaring the negative 4. It's not negative and then the 4 squared. Okay? Now in this case here, 4 times 3 times 20 is 240. And that goes all over 2 times 3, so we get 6. Okay. 4 plus or minus the square root of negative 224 over 6. We got to break up 224. 2 and 1, 12. 2 and 56. 2 and 28. 2 and 14. 2 and 7. Pair of 2s. Pair of 2s. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 7 is 14. 4 plus or minus 4i root 14 over 6. And then I break it up. 2/3 plus or minus 2i root 14 over 3. Measure it. Final question here. We're going to add 14 on both sides. We always have to be equal to 0. X squared plus 7x plus 14 equals 0. Plus 14 equals 0. My A is 1, my B is 7, my C is 14. Negative 7 plus or minus 7 squared minus 4 times 1 times 14 all over 2 times 1. Negative 7 plus or minus 49 minus 56 over 2. Negative 7 plus or minus a negative 7 under the radical. Negative 7 plus or minus I root 7 over 2. Negative 7s plus or minus I root 7